You know, for any musician or producer, there's this invisible enemy that can absolutely wreck a perfect take. It's not a bad note, it's not a crackle in the mic, it's this tiny, maddening delay between when you make a sound and when you actually hear it back. We call it latency. And today, we're going to dig into this problem by looking at two totally different worlds. You've got the polished, do-everything universe of Apple's Mac OS, and then there's this stripped-down, laser-focused specialist called Archibald OS. Man, this quote right here just gets to the absolute heart of it, doesn't it? It's that moment of self-doubt where you think, am I losing my timing? Is my rhythm just gone? So you try again, you focus harder, but something still feels off. And then it hits you. It's not you, it's the machine. It's lagging behind and it's turning your creative flow into pure grinding frustration. This is a story that countless artists know all too well, and it's where our story really kicks off. Okay, so the technical name for this annoying delay is round-trip latency, or RTL. Just picture this. Your voice goes into the microphone, it travels down the cable into your computer, the computer processes it, maybe adds some reverb, and then it sends it all the way back out to your headphones. RTL is the total time that whole trip takes, and we measure it in milliseconds. And trust me, in professional audio, every single millisecond counts. To really put that into perspective, think about this. A delay of just 10 milliseconds is like your drummer standing a whole 10 feet away from you. Now, you can probably still play together, but it's not going to feel tight, is it? It's going to feel just a little disconnected. Now, imagine that same weird, disconnected feeling is happening right inside your head while you're trying to lay down a perfect vocal. That's the battle we're talking about. So this brings us to our first case study, and it's a real head-scratcher that's been baffling folks in the Apple world. For years, Macs were just the gold standard for creative work. You bought it, you opened it, it worked. But lately, something really strange has been happening, creating what I'd call a latency paradox. And this quote from an Apple support user just says it all. You've got people spending thousands of dollars to upgrade from a decade-old machine to a shiny new MacBook with a super powerful chip, only to find it's choking on projects their old computer handled just fine. It makes no sense, right? More power should mean better performance. But in this very specific case, that's not what's happening. And now you're hearing this growing chorus of users pointing their finger at one thing: the switch to Apple Silicon. Now, don't get me wrong, these M-series chips are amazing for speed and battery life in general, but it seems like they've introduced a new problem for real-time audio. The new chips are always trying to be smart, juggling tasks between performance cores and efficiency cores. For browsing the web, that's genius. But for the constant, uninterrupted stream that audio requires, that juggling can cause little hiccups. And you see this user here mentions LLM, that's low latency mode. They have to turn it on just to get a usable recording. So what happens next? Well, you do what we all do. You hit the forums, and you start trying everything. You turn on low latency mode, which, by the way, often turns off the cool plugins you wanted to use in the first place. You start shrinking your buffer size until the CPU just gives up. You freeze tracks, you delete plugins. Some people are even going out and buying super expensive audio interfaces or, and this is the craziest one, selling their brand new Mac to buy an old Intel one that actually works for them. It's this long, painful checklist just to get back to a place where you can make music. All right, so let's pivot hard. What if, instead of trying to wrangle a do-everything computer to work for audio, you built an operating system from the ground up with just one single mission: the absolute total destruction of latency? This is the tagline for Archibald OS. It's a free, open-source project from a group called DeMoD, and right away you can feel the different philosophy. This isn't about checking your email or making spreadsheets. They're positioning this as a dedicated instrument, an environment designed to be so quiet and so efficient that it just disappears, letting your ideas flow without a single technical hiccup. And this really lays out the two different ways of thinking, doesn't it? On one side, you have macOS, designed to be a fantastic everything machine. It's polished, it's user-friendly, and it handles a million different jobs. Archibald OS is the complete opposite. It's laser-focused on being audio-centric. It's willing to sacrifice that general polish for pure, predictable performance. Where Apple's whole motto is it just works, Archibald's is latency first. Now, that is a very bold claim. So how does a small open-source project even begin to compete with a titan like Apple in such a tough arena? Well, the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. Or in this case, it's in the architecture, and more importantly, in the numbers. Okay, let's break this chart down because this is where it gets really wild. This is from the Archibald OS documentation, and it compares their system to other Linux systems.
including Ubuntu Studio, which is another popular choice for audio work. Now, the row you really need to look at is that top one, round-trip latency. A normal system, you might get 10, maybe 20 milliseconds. Ubuntu Studio gets that down to a very, very good 1.5 to 3. But then, look at Archibald OS. That number is almost hard to believe. 0.67 milliseconds. That's less than 1 millisecond for the entire round trip. If we go back to our drummer analogy, that's not like them being 10 feet away. It's like they're less than a foot away. It is, for all practical human purposes, instantaneous. It's a number that just completely rewrites the rules for what you can do with real-time recording and performance. So the big question is, how? How is that even possible? Well, the core secret is something called CPU isolation. Essentially, Archibald OS builds a wall inside your computer's brain. It says to the system, hey, see these specific CPU cores? They are for audio and audio only. The rest of the system, checking for Wi-Fi, updating the clock, whatever, you are not allowed to bother them, ever. By basically building a protected, VIP lane for audio, it achieves a level of stability that a general-purpose system just can't touch. And this really speaks to their entire philosophy. It's not just one clever trick. Every single choice they make is to serve that sub-millisecond goal. They use a special real-time kernel. The whole system is incredibly light and efficient. And because it's built on this cool framework called NixOS, every single setup is perfectly reproducible. So you don't get that weird thing where your computer just gets slower and slower over time for no reason.
Okay, so let's zoom back out and look at the big picture. We've seen Apple, a tech giant with incredibly powerful machines, hitting this weird, unexpected speed bump. And then we've seen Archibald OS, this specialized tool that makes some really radical choices to crush one very specific goal. So what's the takeaway here?
I think this metaphor just sums it up perfectly. A modern Mac is like a luxury SUV. It's gorgeous, it's comfortable, and it can handle pretty much any road you throw at it. It's the perfect vehicle for 99% of your life. Archibald OS, that's a Formula One car. It doesn't have air conditioning, it doesn't have a radio, and it would be a terrible choice for a trip to the grocery store. But on a racetrack, it is untouchable. It is a machine built for one thing and one thing only: absolute performance. And that, right there, is the key. This isn't about saying macOS is bad or that Archibald OS is better. It's about seeing them as different tools with totally different priorities. The frustration for Apple users comes from their luxury SUVs suddenly sputtering on a road it used to cruise down effortlessly. The power of Archibald OS comes from its absolute, fearless willingness to sacrifice everything that doesn't serve its one singular mission. And this all leaves us with our really fascinating question about the future of creative work. You know, as our needs get more and more specific, are we moving away from this dream of having one singular machine that does everything perfectly? Is the future for professionals a toolbox full of highly specialized instruments like Archibald OS? Or can the one-size-fits-all approach of a system like Mac OS evolve to keep up? It's a fundamental trade-off between convenience and pure, uncompromising performance. And for any creator, right in that moment of inspiration, finding the right tool can make all the difference in the world.